Foreclosures are on the rise, guys. They are continuing to go up, up, and up, guys.
So yet again, we've got another person spreading fear, making things seem worse than they really are in the housing market. So I want to kind of react to this video that this YouTuber recently put out. And again, I get it, right? I'm not going to knock the hustle. The dude is taking the information and, in my opinion, manipulating the data to make things seem worse than it is for some clickbait. And it's working. If you look at the dude's channel, he puts a video out there that says housing market just got worse. Brutal news. Pretty captivating title, I should say so myself. And lo and behold, dude gets 16,000 views in 6 days. I mean, to his credit, he's getting a lot more views than I'm getting. That's for sure. My question beyond the views is there any truth to this? And that is my concern, is that people inside of the real estate industry, like you and I, real estate agents, mortgage professionals, they might see things like this, and the spread of maybe information that doesn't have all the nuance and all the context might get people's panties in a bunch for no reason. This is one of those videos. Listen to what he says.
Individuals to have some stress here. And then it says U.S. housing filings jumped 22% in the first quarter compared to the same period a year ago, according to a report. While still below pre-pandemic levels, foreclosure activity has been increasing on an annual basis for 23 straight months, guys. 23 straight months.
Now, 23 straight months. As he's reading through the report, guys, he kind of just glosses over the most important part, which is pre-pandemic levels. And this is why people are what they do is they take data, headline data, they take it out of context and say, well, see, this is really, really bad. Let me give you an example. Look at a report, guys, and I'll show you. Completed foreclosure filings rose 115% from just a year ago. Now, if you stop there, yeah, that seems pretty alarming, but you have to give it more context. If you keep reading, what does the report say? It says, but we're down 34% from 2019. Which is pre-pandemic levels. When we look at the housing market leading up to the pandemic, where foreclosures were way higher than where we are today, you didn't see anybody making videos about foreclosures. Why? Because they were nowhere near where foreclosures were when we actually had a housing market crisis, where we actually had a housing market collapse, housing market crash. And I'll show you in that same report what we mean. So if you look at where we were at in 2019, this was U.S. properties with completed foreclosure filings. We had about 493,000 homes that completed the foreclosure filing process. When we go back to where we were at in 2010, following the housing market crash, you start to see, oh, wow, we had 2.9 million homes that went through the foreclosure filing process. And so you have to look at this and put it into actual context as to where we're at today. And it's nowhere even close. That's one. The second part that he just, for whatever reason, glossed right over, if you look and say, okay, completed foreclosure filings are up 22% or whatever percent, right, that's because, what does the report say? One of the biggest contributors to the spike in foreclosures was what? Oh, that's right. The end of the pandemic era foreclosure moratoriums. Banks and lenders were not allowed to foreclose on property owners during the pandemic. So, of course, any increase from zero looks like a major increase. That's why context matters. That's why nuance matters. Because if you just take the headline, again, I'll go back to headline people are just having a field day with, completed foreclosures up 115%. Okay, cool. Well, if you take that out of context, yeah, it probably looks scarier than it actually is. When you put the data and you show the entire picture, you start to say, well, wait a minute, foreclosures, we have less foreclosures happening right now than we did before the pandemic started, when housing prices were going through the moon. So what's the issue again? That's one thing. And then it's people that are spreading fear about this housing market crash. He goes on to talk about in that video about how that is worse for the housing market, how the housing market prices are going to collapse, all of those things. Yet, as I'm making this video, ironically enough, the U.S. Home Price CoreLogic Index just came out. And if you look at the report, oh my gosh, look what happened. Month over month, home prices went up 1.6% month over month, and year over year, they went up 3.1%. If you look at CoreLogic's forecast for home prices in 2024, they are predicting home prices do what? Oh, that's right. Go up year over year by 4.6%. Where is the housing market crash that these people that continue to spread fear in the housing market, where is it? I think it's I don't think it's safe to take headline data, manipulate the data, and then create a false narrative that suggests things are happening when they really aren't. That's the definition in my book of fear mongering, right? It's, hey, foreclosures are up 22%. We're in massive trouble. But wait a minute, when you look at that pre-pandemic and you look at where foreclosures were at when we actually had a housing market crisis, you find that we're way down in foreclosures. The thing that would cause a home housing market crash, if we were flooded with inventory from foreclosures the way that we were in 2008, 2009, 2010, and 11, that would cause prices to decrease. But what is the reality? The reality is housing inventory right now still at record lows. Number of new listings hitting record lows year over year, which is keeping home prices at bay. Yes, are foreclosures up? For sure. Are we going to continue to have rocky times ahead? For sure. But if we look at the current housing foreclosure starts or the completions, you can't look at the data and say, look, it's way, way up. I know it's way, way up because we were at 0% for about 2 years. If you're at 0 and we go and we get 100 foreclosures, you're up 100%. Of course, we're going to be up. But compared to what? Give that data some context. And when you give it context and you look at it and you compare it to where this country was at with foreclosures before the pandemic, you see, oh, wait a minute, we're actually down 34% from that time when nobody was talking about foreclosures because it was just normal. And I go back to that same report. Let's just go back to that one more time. Here are the key takeaways from that report. Key takeaway number 1, completed foreclosure filings rose 115% in 2022 from a year before. but we're down 34% from 2019. One of the biggest contributors to the spike in foreclosures was the end of the pandemic era foreclosure moratoriums. The vast majority of people in foreclosure have positive equity, which they can use to refinance or sell their property, a trend that seems likely to continue in 2023. And so when we look at these things and we say, okay, will foreclosures be the thing that tanks housing prices like it did before? You start to quickly realize, well, probably not, because of equity positions, the ability to refinance, the ability to sell the property, unlike people had in the time of the Great Recession. And so, it's just frustrating that, people just love making those types of videos, and we see them every single day. And I think that the data that continues to be manipulated for clickbait, for views. But I think at the same time, it's causing people a lot of undue stress, anxiety. I mean, Wall Street got it wrong. Again, I'm not saying, or I'm not suggesting for a second that we don't have challenges in the housing market. I'm not saying that for a second. But I'm just looking at the facts. It is what it is. Interest rates are really high. Inventory is really low. Home prices are actually gone up. Foreclosures, I'm just looking at the facts. I'm not taking the data, trying to manipulate things to create a false narrative to make my message sound better than it is. Could the housing market collapse? For sure, it could. But no one is seeing that. We have no evidence to suggest that home prices are on their way down. We only have evidence to suggest the exact opposite, like the CoreLogic price index that just came out yesterday. We don't have any data that, in some markets have prices gone down, but average it out across the country, home prices have gone up. As we get back into home buying season in May and June, we're starting to see in a lot of markets that have multiple offer situations again, where homes are selling in the first couple of days with multiple offers over the asking price. That's what we continue to see. We also see mortgage interest rates trending downward off where they were at their high peak late 2022 as we get into May, June, as inflation continues to come down, mortgage rates follow inflation. That then gets home buyers off the sideline. So home sales start to come back up, and we continue to see this housing market recover. So those are my thoughts on what's happening with the housing market right now with current home prices. Again, I ask you, what are you seeing in your market? Depending on where you're at, you're going to see different things. But I keep, in my experience, in the data that I see, and the feedback that I get from the real estate agents that I coach is, man, things are tough out there from the standpoint of, we list a house, it's hard to get your offers accepted. Things are selling really quickly with multiple offers yet again. And the point of this video is that we've yet to see a home price collapse.